Grandma spent all day in the kitchen baking an apple pie. And you mean to tell me you're going to compare it to one that Jimothy picked up in the freezer section of the grocery store? Today, we're finding out if homemade apple pie is actually worth your time, or is your oven just sitting there quietly judging you? This is homemade versus store-bought, apple pie edition. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Curtis, and on this channel, we compare homemade versions of popular desserts against their professional counterparts to see which one comes out on top. Today's battle is homemade apple pie versus Marie Callender's ready-to-bake apple pie. We'll score these two pies in 4 categories with a score between 1 and 5. Appearance, texture, taste, and cost. Now, a brief history. Contrary to popular belief, apple pie is not an American dish. Early apple pie recipes appeared in England in the 1300s. The colonists eventually brought the pie to America, where it quickly became popular and earned the phrase, as American as apple pie, which is ironic because it's actually British. One pie is made fresh, with fresh apples and a homemade crust. The other came from a huge factory that probably cranks out 10,000 pies a day. On a lighter note at least, if you buy it from the store, you won't have a sink full of dirty dishes. Now, the grocery store pie may not have your love baked into it, but it also doesn't have flour on the ceiling. Will the homemade show the world what time, patience, and love can produce in the comforts of your own kitchen? Or will the store-bought show us that buying a complete pie, time and effort, better saved for doom scrolling on TikTok? There's only one way to know for sure. Let's head to the kitchen and find out. What's up, guys? Here we are back in the kitchen, and today we're trying on something a little bit more difficult. We're going to do an apple pie with a homemade crust. Again, this is one that I've never done before, so you're going to find out just as fast as I do whether I can do it or not. So the first thing we got to do is start peeling some apples, and then we're going to let them soak in some lemon juice, and then we'll make the crust. So let's jump in and see how it turns out. Apple pie originated in medieval Europe and evolved over centuries into a beloved dessert and cultural icon, particularly in the United States. Apple pie dates back to the 14th century England, with one of the earliest known recipes appearing in the Forme Écurie around 1381 to 1390. Early pies were often savory, combining apples with figs, raisins, pears, and spices like saffron, cinnamon, and nutmeg, and were encased in sturdy pastry, primarily meant to preserve the filling rather than be eaten. The Dutch later introduced the Latticed style pastry in the 15th century, which became the familiar top crust design used today. Apple pie was brought to North America by European settlers, including the British, Dutch, and Swedish, during the 17th and 18th centuries. Early American recipes appeared in America's first cookbook, American Cookery, from 1796, by Amelia Simmons. Colonists initially relied on meat pies due to their scarcity of European apple varieties, but as apple orchards were established, apple pie became a common dessert. Apples were propagated from seeds, leading to hundreds of new native varieties suitable for cooking. Originally, sugar was a luxury, so early pies were less sweet, sometimes using honey as a sweetener. As sugar became more accessible in the 16th and 17th centuries, apple pies transitioned into the sweet dessert we recognize today. Common ingredients include sugar, butter, spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, and acidic elements such as lemon juice to prevent oxidation. Apple pie can be served a la mode with ice cream or with sharp cheddar cheese, a tradition popular in parts of the United States and northern England. By the early 20th century, apple pie became a symbol of American identity, with phrases like, "as American as apple pie," emerging in the 1920s. Media, advertising, and wartime references reinforced its association with home, patriotism, and wholesome values. Today, apple pie remains a staple dessert in many countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand. From its medieval English roots to its American cultural icon status, apple pie has evolved through centuries of culinary innovation, trade, and adaptation. Its journey reflects changes in ingredients, pastry techniques, and cultural symbolism. Okay guys, we have our apples mixed up. We've already made our crust and we've got it in the refrigerator for 1 hour. I'm going to go ahead and throw these apples in the refrigerator as well, and when that crust gets done, we'll roll it out and we'll assemble our pie. So I'll see you in just a few minutes. As sugar became more accessible in the 16th and 17th centuries, apple pies transitioned into the sweet dessert we recognize today. Common ingredients include sugar, butter, spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, and acidic elements such as lemon juice to prevent oxidation. Apple pie can be served a la mode with ice cream or with sharp cheddar cheese, a tradition popular in parts of the United States and northern England. By the early 20th century, apple pie became a symbol of American identity, with phrases like, "as American as apple pie," emerging in the 1920s. Media, advertising, and wartime references reinforced its association with home, patriotism, and wholesome values. Today, apple pie remains a staple dessert in many countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand. From its medieval English roots to its American cultural icon status, apple pie has evolved through centuries of culinary innovation, trade, and adaptation. Its journey reflects changes in ingredients, pastry techniques, and cultural symbolism, making it one of the most enduring and beloved desserts worldwide. Well, there you have it, folks. My first attempt at latticing the crust. I put butter in between it because the apples were supposed to have a little butter on them. So I put it in all the little holes. Then I put an egg wash on all the lattice pieces and then sprinkled it with sugar. So we're gonna put it in the oven at 425 for 20 minutes. Then we're gonna cook it another additional 50 minutes. So let's get it in the oven. We're gonna put it on a sheet pan with an edge because it might bubble over as it's cooking. So let's get it in the oven and we'll set a timer for 20 minutes and come back and check it.
A few moments later.
Well, there you have it, folks. There is our latticed baked apple pie. I think it turned out all right. It got a little bit dark here on the top, but I mean, there was sugar and egg wash on it, so that's probably the reason. It almost looks kind of caramelly in the around the edge and on the inside. So we're gonna let this set up a little bit before we cut a piece because it's really hot right now. Then we'll get in there. We'll compare it up against the Marie Callender's pie, which I got out of the oven about an hour ago. Let's let this set up and then we'll get in there and test it. But first, check out this reveal. The verdict. Well, here we are comparing these two pies. On the right, we have the homemade version, and on the left, we have the Marie Callender's. As always, we'll be grading these in 4 categories with a score between 1 and 5. The first category being an appearance. Now, it's not quite fair to judge the appearance on these two based on the pieces that were cut out of the pies. Here you can see both the homemade whole pie and the Marie Callender's whole pie. With that being what we judge, I fully believe that the Marie Callender's just did a solid crust on the top and cut some slits in it that opened up as it baked. With mine, I attempted the lattice style of crust, and it turned out quite well. I brushed it with an egg wash and put sugar, and it really browned up, and I can imagine how it tastes because it sure looks nice. So, with that being said, I'm going to give mine a 4, and I'm going to give the Marie Callender's a 3. All right, moving on to texture. But the texture of this is really going to come down to the apple filling and how flaky the crust is. So we'll jump into the homemade one first. It does have some flakiness to it. Kind of buttery. The top is really hard, but that's to be expected. Now let's get on the inside. The apples are done. They don't have as much of like the sauce that the apples create. They don't have as much sauce as this one does, but we'll talk about that in a second. The crust on the bottom is buttery and flaky. So let's do Marie Callender's now. Okay, their crust is really nice and flaky. It's nowhere near as done as mine. The inside actually has more of the jelly, whatever that is, that is the sauce that the apples are in. There's less apples than what are in mine. Mine is all apples. This looks like it's half filling, half apples. With that in mind, I'm going to give my texture a 3, and I'm also going to give theirs a 3 because the filling is just not all that great. All right, now we move to taste. And I am dying to taste what these little pieces of crust taste like. So let me get some of the apples and a piece of crust. That tastes really, really good. The fresh apples, the crust isn't as hard as I thought it was, as it appeared. It just kind of dissolves in your mouth. The filling is wonderful. If I could improve anything, I might add a little more salt to this. But other than that, that tastes really good. Now let's try the Marie Callender's. Piece of crust. I don't like that at all. It's bland. The crust has no flavor. The pie barely tastes like apples at all. I guess we've been having this apple pie in our past around the holidays and stuff, and I never had a homemade apple pie to compare it to. But now that I'm trying homemade next to this thing leaves a lot to be desired. So with that in mind, mine on the taste, I'm gonna give it a 4. It's really good. On their taste is a 2. All right, now let's talk about cost. I'm gonna say that neither one of these pies are really cheap. They're both, the Marie Callender's was $8. And if you took all the ingredients, I had to buy a bunch of apples. I would say that the apples are probably the largest part of the cost of this thing. But I would still say this would come under what the Marie Callender's costs. So with that in mind, Marie Callender's on cost is going to get a 2, and mine is going to get a 3. With all that said, it doesn't matter what we think. We got to ask the judge. So let's get her up here and let her taste it. First one, we're going to give her a little bit of the apple and some crust. Here you go. What do you think of that?
Wow, that's pretty good. I've decided that you are allowed to continue to live here.
Oh, you like it, huh? Well, let's see what you think of the store-bought version. Well, which one do you like the best?
Ew, gross. I'd bury this in the backyard and forget it existed.
Well, there you have it, folks. Homemade wins again. This was a fun challenge. Being able to try techniques that I had no idea I could do, just following some instructions. This apple pie turned out really well. If you have the time, it is a little bit of labor intensive, peeling the apples, cutting them, making the crust. You can go to the store and buy a pre-made crust, which would speed it up significantly. But based on the way that tastes, the Marie Callender's taste, I would say take the time, especially if you're trying to impress the neighbors, take the time to make your apple pie from scratch. Well, that's all we have for today. We appreciate you coming by and spending this time with us. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And we'll be back next week with a new video. And with that being said, we'll see you on that next video. Tell them bye, Piper.
Bye now. We'll see you on the next video.